Perhaps one of the hardest thing for anyone to do about their own mental health is stop spiraling. You know the feeling when something negative suddenly hits you and then every single bad things in life just flashes through your mind, and before you even know it, you have completely abandoned work, relationship, and every single thing else. And now you're finding ways to cope with 100 negative thoughts racing through your mind in that exact moment. And yeah, that's spiraling. And I personally have had various experiences with it. So today we're going to go over two things specifically about this topic. One is how to take preventative measures, because prevention is literally half of the work. And two, how to pull yourself out of a spiral using a comprehensive spiral map. And without further ado, let's dive straight in. First thing first, this video will have two parts. The first one, in the first half, will be about preventing spirals and how it might be important, might be even more important in this process than even pulling yourself out of the spiral itself. You can think of it like an athlete. Having a speedy recovery is pretty crucial, and it is completely a good thing, absolutely. However, nobody really wants to get injured in the first place. If the athlete works hard in things like landing exercises and landing without engaging unwanted muscles and unwanted parts of their body, we are going to take measures like how to prepare yourself for a big moment, and a moment that can possibly send you into a spiral. And this mental space that you should be in, the frameworks that you should have ready to engage with the big moment coming. So I guess to sum things up, it is a good idea to know how to pull yourself out of a spiral, but it is even a better idea to not have to. And then the second half of this video, we're going to talk about the spiral map, detailing what stage are you on and how you can get away from it, the exercises that you can do. But anyway, we will talk about that map later. But if you're in one right now, and you need to get out quickly, please feel free to skip forward to the next section. Now, let's talk about mental health and its fundamentals. What do you think is the underlying issues of every single mental health issue? I'll give you a moment to think about it. Well, the number one goal you're trying to accomplish in mental health problems is to be in control of your mind, not your mind being in control of you. I guess the analogy that I'm going to use here is a tug of war. A tug of war between you and your demons. If you're on a spiral right now, that means demons are winning and they're getting the best of you. And if you're perfectly calm, then the demons are losing. For example, depression is when your mind tells you that your life sucks and there is no future that even excites you anymore. Or maybe in the case of compulsive stress, for example, your demons are telling you that if you don't worry about the future, it is going to turn out unfavorably for you. Or if you're struggling with negative thought patterns, your mind is telling you that things will turn out for the worst. So, not to stay in this analogy any longer, let's talk about how to win a war. Your number one priority to win a war between you and your demons is not to win a war at all. It's pretty simple, right? If you're not in a war, you cannot lose. You literally cannot lose. However, I do apologize if I do tend to be a little bit abstract or, using too much analogies here and there. I hope everyone does not mind. So here are the 4 preventative methods that you can utilize to prevent spirals. First is mindfulness, next is preloaded decision, then daily mental health check-in, and lastly separation practice. And as for mindfulness, the goal here is to make everything visible and put them into perspective in a calm manner before everything hits you. Your objective is kind of like think about everything first and then put them into perspective. So if, for example, you're going to a job interview, try to tackle things like how things might turn out. It might sound a little bit depressing, but you can be disappointed if you don't really have expectations. And if it's any help, I think you should have expectations, but you should also be prepared for how things might turn out for the worst. Just brace yourself for that moment. And as for the practice of mindfulness, this is what I recommend you do. First, you need to find a quiet and reflective place that you can think for yourself. Walking or maybe sitting in your car are all good options. Second, ask yourself questions like, how do you truthfully feel about your life, this situation, and how things might turn out? One thing to note here though, I want to stress the word truthful. Listen, I know it can be really frightening to confront these things, but it's not gonna go away unless you really look at it in the eye and say, yes, I'm afraid, I'm fearful, but I'm going to be courageous and stare you in the eye and tackle you until I get rid of you. And if you're watching this, I know that you're not alone, and I have also been there, and I wish you can too. Now, the second method is called preloaded decisions. Once again, let me remind you that by far the most effective course of action here is to come at your problems at your own pace and at your own comfort and be prepared. So preloaded decisions are the next step. After you have confronted all the fearful emotions within you, you determine the course of actions you're going to take in those cases. It's kind of like a decision tree, like point A, point B, point C, output up. And if it looks something like this. Think about it like this. What will be the next action if you fail or succeed? From there, plan from the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Fail and succeed, and going back and forth like that. And after you've done the decision tree, there is an especially useful exercise that you can employ. This is what I carry with me always, an exercise powerful enough for me to overcome any obstacles in life. Later on, there will be more variations of this particular exercise, and the practice that I call separation exercise goes like this. With pen or paper, or maybe just your mind, up to you. Draw 3 columns. On the left, write, what do I feel about this particular situation? And in the middle, removing myself from the scenario, what are the truths that I got wrong? And in the right, what are the positive points present here? To put this into context, let's circle back to our job interview example. On the left, it would be, I feel fear and I am afraid of getting rejected. Then I might become, a useless, unemployed person. Again, try to be straightforward and truthful as much as possible. In the middle, a person failing an interview does not mean he is useless or he is a useless person. It just means that there are more things that he can do, more things to be done until he is ready to be accepted. He just needs to up his level. And on the right side, it can be something like, if I fail, I'm going to ask my interviewer what I can do to improve myself. And that's an opportunity. Lastly, with the daily check-ins, you will ensure that every single day all the practices are going to be carried out to ensure that you are as calm and collected as you can be. So I recommend your dailies to have the following questions. Feel free to use the word dailies in this channel. 1. What significant thoughts did I experience today? It doesn't matter if positive or negative, document it down. What led me to those thoughts? And the final question is, if I'm being honest about my life, does it suck or is it good? Now we move on to the spiral arc. So now that you know how to take preventative measures on how not to go to war with your demons, we're going to take a look at how you can win against them if you ever catch yourself in such a position. Now, before everybody asks, no, this is not a clinical concept. I want to make that clear. It is not made by psychologists or psychiatrists. It is made by me, my observations, and my idea of how to best deal with spiral. However, I did take inspirations in other concepts such as the emotional cycle of change and polyvagal theory, aka window of tolerance. And here are the stages that you might catch yourself in a spiral. First is emotional trigger, initial stressor, the moment that the thoughts show up. This is where the negative thoughts start appearing. In this stage, you're not overwhelmed, but you can start to anticipate and predict that your mind will go into a negative place and you will not be able to control it. The second stage is what I call subtle activation. Here, thoughts loop gently, emotion simmers. This is where your thoughts start to accelerate. However, you're not out of control completely, but you kind of know that it is near. The third stage, in the bottom, we have complete spiral. Here, full cognitive and emotional hijack is in place. In this stage, your demons have won the war. They are in your mind. It is like they have come into your house and kind of kicked you out of it. But worry not, we are going to go over how to deal with that later. Then we have disruption. Emotion is still present, but you're kind of regaining direction. You start to be positive again. This is where you knock on the door and say to the intruders, to the demons, hey, this is my home. I will live in it, no matter if you like it or not. It doesn't mean they're going to leave already, but things are taking a good turn. And finally, we have a normal state. This is where you return to a normal state. And the spiral have been dealt with. So not to beat around the theories any further, what can you do if you're in stage 1? Well, the goal here is to be prepared and to brace yourself for the upcoming storm. Because the moment your mind starts racing, you should never turn back and exit that window. And you should never turn back and you should never run away. The only way to deal with it is to be calm but steady, and you win the war. Here are a couple things that you should be doing. First, set yourself a worry window. Let's say you were to spiral and overthink. Let's accept that you cannot prevent it. How long do you want to have yourself in that stage? Provide yourself with a window, and is it 1 hour? Is it 1 day? It's kind of weird, but it actually works, because when you provide it with actual closure, with time and place, it is much easier for you to stop doing it. So you need to decide this. What will it be? Will you allow yourself to be down about it in half a day, maybe 1 day, or maybe if it is something extremely big, you can try 1 week. And what actions will you be taking next? By the way, this is not built by me. It is a famous exercise in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. So before you jump to your assumptions, this is not some made up concept by this random dude online. Although I feel like I'm pretty good at building exercises, if I'm being completely honest. But anyway, the second thing here is to be sure of your preloaded decisions. And we've gone over this in the last section. Now, I guess I should not talk about it again and kind of make it redundant, but this works in the same way as worry window. When you spiral and you can only see the bleak future in front of you, by doing this, by preloaded reaction decisions, you know exactly what to do, and that there are other things for you to tackle. You know there is a good future ahead of you. The last thing for you to do here is to get in a calm state. It can be by various methods. Chamomile tea, you can listen to music, you can do a creative hobby, you can take a walk. One thing I do find extremely effective though is to think about how nihilistic this world is and contemplate on my past incorrect beliefs. I'm not sure if this is going to work for you guys, but just some weird thing that I do. Anyway, let me know if you guys care for some philosophy in the comment. Now, moving on to the second stage. This is where you still have control over your mind. It is a-okay. Your calm level is about 50%. And this is perhaps your last attempt to put a stop to an overwhelming spiral. That is also the goal of this stage, to kind of brace yourself and minimize the effect of the upcoming spiral, to make it less dramatic as possible. So here are 3 things that you can utilize in this step. The first one is thought records, another CBT exercise where you can keep a record of your own mind. What did you think and something like that. And by doing this, you would be able to distance yourself from the biased story that you're telling yourself. The way that this exercise works is like this. Use a 5-column format. First, situation, what happened? 2, automatic thought, what did your mind say? 3rd, emotion, what did you feel? Rate the intensity from 0 to 100%. 4th, evidence for or against the thought. And 5th and lastly, alternative thought or outcome. Second method here is called cognitive distortion. To put it simply, to call out the bullcrap that your mind is telling yourself. Think of it like a friend trying to make themselves look cool and they're not. And you kind of call them out. This forces yourself to accept that you're telling yourself stories and these things aren't really the truth of the situation. That way, you no longer feel bad for yourself. And the way you do it is to first familiarize and then categorize yourself with key distortions like these. First is all or nothing thinking. It's like, if I'm not perfect, then I'm a failure. Second is catastrophizing, meaning if I mess this up, everything will collapse. Or mind reading, they didn't reply to me, then they must hate me. Then we have emotional reasoning. I feel anxious, so something bad must be happening. Something bad must be waiting for me in the future. Overgeneralizing. This is when you say, this always happens to me. Third and the last exercise is called separation, or an updated version of it. First 3 column. First one is now how you're feeling. Second is removing yourself from the situation. Objectively, what are the truths to the scenario? And lastly, what are the valuable opportunities that arise from this situation? Solo leveling reference. Anyway, this exercise is here to again help you realize that what you're facing is a story that you tell yourself. It is not the truth. It is not in any shape or form the truth to the situation. And there are upsides to take into account, even if bad things might happen. Now, in the worst case scenario, if you ever find yourself in a full out panicking spiral, your goal here is, of course, to regain control of yourself, to control your mind, not your mind controlling you. And without dragging this on, let's dive straight into what you can do in these situations. First, You can employ the 3 exercises that we utilized in the last stage: thought records, cognitive distortions, and separation exercise. And on top of that, there is an extremely useful exercise to do: exposure therapy. This is where you imagine the worst case scenario and expose yourself to that reality in your own mind instead of experiencing it. I cannot stress enough how effective this exercise is. There have been a lot of studies confirming its effectiveness, and personally, I know that it works because I used to have claustrophobia, the fear of tight spaces. I could not sit in the back seats of an SUV because every time I do, my body would itches and it would move. I would sweat a lot and my breathing will get unsteady. It kind of feel like I'm having a worm inside of me somehow. And as gross as that sounds, exposure therapy got me over it. So the way that you do this is to first imagine yourself in a fearful situation. Really feel the senses, engages the senses. What can you feel? Who are there with you? What are you thinking in such hypothetical situation? What are the actions that you can take from there? Really putting it into your mind and imagine it. And when you have grown more comfortable with that vision in your own mind, you can experience it yourself, but in a less significant way. Exposure therapy, that's the name. For instance, if you think you will not get the job after the interview, you can get rejected in some insignificant way, like asking your sibling if you're good looking or not. That's always humbles you. Another thing that I suggest is to take small wins. This is when you actually start turning the table around. It doesn't really matter how small of a win it is. If I say I want to raise my hand, that can count as a win. Because these wins mean a lot to you and also are proof that you can use to turn the situation around. So maybe if you just got rejected at a job interview, for example, you can decide that you still go to the gym that afternoon and you can hop on your treadmill, you can hop on the squat bar, or maybe you can go online and find another company that you want to apply to. You don't have to apply right now, but just find one and save it. Take any small win possible. As a kid, I used to keep dragging out the amount of time that I brush my teeth, even if it's 1 second or 2 seconds longer, because that means I am winning the war against the germs. That might sound a little bit childish because I was actually a child. But yeah, small wins can mean increasingly more significant during times like this. So just go for it. A word of promotion: if you're currently dealing with mental health and negativity, maybe you're stressed or having anxiety, and a word of promotion: if you're a young adult or a modern person and you're struggling with mental health, you're having negative thought patterns, you're having, anxiety, you're in extreme stress, and you just want a way to deal with it yourself. You want to be self-sufficient. You want to be able to have clarity and have control over yourself, not depending on everybody else to give you a good mental health. Then perhaps you should check out my coaching program, Project Self-Design. In there, I teach a lot of things, and you will absolutely have the control over your mental health out of it. So check that out in the description. And with all that being said, I hope you're the best, and I wish you the best of luck.